Welcome to the Leadmore podcast. I'm your host, John T. Meyer. The Leadmore podcast is the show where we sit down with leaders of today to help inspire and create more leaders for tomorrow, because I believe the world needs more leaders. In this episode, we went a little bit of a different route. Sometimes I think it's important for leaders to be up in the clouds, thinking, be visionaries, to project what the future might look like and just dream a little bit. And that's definitely where we're headed on this episode. On this episode of the Leadmore podcast, we sit down with my friend Kyle Tut from Omaha, Nebraska. Kyle is one of the smartest people I know in the crypto Web3 blockchain world. And so you might be thinking, what the hell does that mean? Well, you're in luck, because on this episode, we did two things. One, I made Kyle go macro, like what does Web3 mean? What is this? What was Web 1 and what was Web 2? What's the blockchain? And crypto, maybe you've heard of Bitcoin or Ethereum. We dive into all of that. But then we also go micro and talk about definitions. What's the blockchain? What is an NFT? What is a wallet? All of these things. These are all fascinating things to me, and things that I think leaders maybe don't need to know now, but you will need to know in the future. So it's good to start thinking about it. Kyle's the CEO and co-founder of a company called Pinata, which helps people and companies manage their NFTs. So I know you might be thinking, I don't know what any of these words mean. Don't worry, we're going to talk about it. You will definitely learn something from this episode. So with that, my good friend Kyle, let's take a listen. All right, welcome to another edition of the Leadmore podcast. I'm excited for this episode. It's going to be a little bit different, which makes me excited. I'm here with my friend Kyle Tut, from the CEO of Pinata in Omaha, Nebraska. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited because I feel like I've been diving headfirst into the crypto blockchain world, and you are the person that I know closest in terms of who really understands this space and has been playing this game for a while. So my hope today is for the Leadmore listeners, this is going to be a little more of like a here's this bright new shiny object that I think is more than a shiny object, and something that you need to start thinking about as a leader or aspiring leader, because it's going to, or already is, or I believe going to change the world. And you are the subject matter expert to bring on this topic. So let's at least start. Tell folks what you do at Pinata and what piece of the whole kind of blockchain world are you guys trying to solve?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Pinata, we say we're the home for NFT Media. So what we do is we manage all of the data, whether that's media, files, any kind of data, applications, doesn't really matter, of NFTs or non-fungible tokens, which is maybe we'll dive into a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we handle the data associated with blockchains, to put it simple. Basically what we do is we help these NFTs build high quality NFTs, manufacture high quality NFTs, make sure they're secure and safe and what they're supposed to be, and bringing NFTs into, I guess, whatever the next generation of them are going to look like. Everybody might have exposure to them as a JPEG or something like that. We're trying to bring them into the next generation.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Are most of your customers doing it in the art sort of collectors industry, or do you have customers doing NFTs in a different use case?
Yeah, so we have every use case you could imagine. So, 6 months ago, it was just an image attached to an NFT. Now what we're seeing is 3D assets. We're seeing full applications. So you can attach an application to an NFT and manage it through that NFT. Data sets, full virtual worlds. It gets pretty wild.
Cool. So we'll park that because I think we'll come back to that. But there's probably an order of operations to get to NFTs. And so let's first explain. I met you, I think, in late 2017, maybe early 2018.
Yeah, I drove up to Sioux Falls.
Yeah, you came to Sioux Falls. We had lunch, and I remember you told me to buy Ethereum, and I don't think
I said that.
I think you did. Not investment advice, right? Not investment advice. But probably in as as many words without saying it. And I listened to you, but I truly didn't listen to you enough. I think I probably bought like a couple $100 of Ethereum. Should have been more, but you had at that point already been in the game for a little while. So how did you, a kid from Nebraska, fall into this hole of blockchain and cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so my story actually starts with it would be actually Dusty Davidson back in the day when he was at Silicon Prairie News still at the time.
Yeah.
I was actually in the office with him. And he was talking about he had bought Bitcoin. So this would have been 2013.
Okay.
He bought like $100 in Bitcoin or something like that on an exchange called Mt. Gox.
Oh, yeah.
And the exchange ended up getting hacked and everybody lost their Bitcoin. And, it didn't end well, but that was my first exposure to it.
Were you an intern? Were you?
So I was an intern with the Omaha Chamber with Dusty Reynolds, and we were in the Silicon Prairie News office is where we officed out of. So just saw that from afar back then, and then in 2015, I just bought some Bitcoin on Coinbase.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first exposure, was following, Twitter and Reddit and things like that, trying to learn about cryptocurrency and what is this thing. Not truly in it yet, but on my way. And then in 2016, started really diving into it, especially with Ethereum and learning about these things called smart contracts and getting pretty invested in that. And then early 2017, I actually ended up quitting my job at the startup I was at and said, hey, I'm just going to jump into blockchain and crypto full time. I don't know what this is going to mean or what I'm going to do, but I'll figure it out on the way. And as you can imagine, in Omaha in 2017, there wasn't a lot of blockchain or crypto people. And so I immediately jumped on a flight and went to New York to compete at a hackathon because me being a non-technical person, I knew that I needed to be closer to the people who actually understood the technology underneath. And so went to that hackathon, ended up, I think we won a small prize there or something like that. And then just kept doing that and kept learning about the technology and working in the space. And eventually we were able to figure out a problem in the space, and that's handling what's considered off-chain data. And that eventually became Pinata.
What I love about your story is like, you weren't like, I'm just going to kind of nights and weekends, read some blog post or maybe like read the Ethereum white paper. You just dove head first, and you just knew that something good will happen. And you were traveling around the world, right? You were going globally to hackathons.
Yeah, we went Berlin and Mexico and Toronto and all over the place.
Yeah. And I suppose, there's this saying right now in sort of NFT crypto world that like, hey, we're in the early innings, like the game's just getting started, which means that you were just like, weren't even at the field yet. You were just like, people weren't even warming up in 2017. Right.
Yeah. So I remember the first week I quit my job, I had this like idea that I was going to apply blockchains and smart contracts to the supply chain because I was looking at Omaha. I'm like, we have a Union Pacific and there's a bunch of trucking
companies. I remember you telling me this. Yeah.
I'm like, how can I apply it to either supply chains or agriculture? And so I was just calling everybody up. And at the time, they didn't even know what it was, right? They didn't understand what blockchain was. It was a bit of a buzzword.
Yeah. Do they now? Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I think most of them will. But back then, a lot of people didn't even know what I was talking about. So.
And there's this, I think it was Chris Dixon, he's a venture capitalist, who has this great line of like, the future will often first look like a toy. Like we'll almost like dismiss it or think that like that, what is that? That's never real. I'm sure going around Nebraska of all places, you were getting a lot of comments like that, or just people not understanding why this matters. Yeah.
They just, didn't have any exposure to it and didn't really know anything about it. I mean, at the time, the Bitcoin price wasn't in the news like it has been. That there was a run up in 2017, 2018 that really kind of brought it to the forefront of media. But before that time period, you were really only talking to some nerds basically about it. And if they understood it, they weren't ready to like apply it or anything. They just thought it was interesting. Now, since then, there's been plenty of applications.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And that was something I was going to ask. I remember 2017, the joke was like at Thanksgiving, right? Your uncle's going to be asking you, hey, do you have any Bitcoin? Right. Like that was sort of like the fad then. But even since then, in just 4 years, not even 4 years, we've had a pretty bear market, followed by now a very bull market over the last 8-10 months, I would say. How did you stay committed? Like, how did you know this is what you wanted to be in? Because it's easy when everything's going up, everything is fun and exciting in the headlines. Like I should just be in crypto, but I know that they say the real builders stick around when sort of everyone else disappears, when things aren't going as well.
So my personal philosophy and the reason I quit my job back in, it would have been April of 2017 was, I believed in crypto and specifically Ethereum at the time, and thought it would do great things, but I didn't want to rely on it as the way that I was going to make money. So my bet or my hedge against cryptocurrency was, all right, I'm just going to build a business in the industry because I believe in the technology. And so 2017, 2018, it was really high. It was able to get me through and, dedicate time to building a business. I was living in a basement, my parents' basement, and going the tough route with trying to build my business. And then during the downturn of the crypto markets, is when you actually run into people who are in it for the technology and are willing to actually build stuff. And that's when actually the fun is that's where the good ideas come out of. That's where you make real connections with people who are going to stick around. A lot of people that come in, during the up times or hearing about the price of crypto or whatever, they'll try to create a business on top of it and, kind of cash in. And it's a lot more difficult than that. So,
yeah, that makes sense. All right. So let's get into a little, I think it's important to start with some terminology. Because certainly this is not a crypto podcast. And so if you've listened this far, bear with us, because I think this is important to learn some of this. And Kyle's kind of my confidant when I have random dumb questions as a newbie, which I think every person in the crypto world sort of has someone like that, which is important. So let's just start at the top. So like blockchain. When you said, I believed in the technology, what did tell us what blockchain is?
Yeah. So there's a million different ways that people describe blockchain, but the way I always look at blockchain is it's basically a bunch of computers around the world trying to agree that there are transactions or data that everybody agrees on. People call it consensus. And once it's on the blockchain, that data is going to be there for as long as the blockchain exists. And the term for this is immutability. But the way to look at it, or the way I look at blockchains, is just a really, I don't like using the word secure, but it's a really for sure way to store data. And what that enables is making sure that that somebody has this much money over in their account and you have this much money in your account, or they own this at this time, or moved it from one account to the other. So it's really good at being a ledger of assets, essentially, or tokens, or whatever it ends up being a ledger for. And those use cases expand every day, but it's a ledger that everybody agrees on. It's on a bunch of different computers around the world. And it's pretty stable, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. So it's difficult to take down. It's really redundant and stable.
And it would be appropriate to say part of the whole sort of thesis or narrative of blockchain is that it's also decentralized, right? So we're taking out the middleman in theory.
Yeah, in theory. So what
Doesn't always happen that way.
doesn't always happen that way, but yeah, so you're relying on other people to secure the network. And that's where things like mining, if you hear about mining, that's where miners come into play. They're the ones that are securing the network and validating transactions, saying, yep, like on Bitcoin, this person sent 1 Bitcoin from this address to this address. That is a transaction that's taking place on the blockchain. The miners are validating that. And technically anybody can be a miner. In practicality today, you need to be able to run huge mining servers and mining farms in data centers to actually do it effectively.
That's pretty cost prohibitive now. Yeah.
Back in the day, you used to be able to just do it on your laptop.
All right. So we got blockchain. Another level down, we hear the term cryptocurrency often. Yep. I think the two that maybe matter the most or people hear about in the headlines are Bitcoin and Ethereum. These are two different types of cryptocurrency that use the blockchain technology. Maybe just high level difference between the two.
Yeah, so Bitcoin was the first instance of cryptocurrency and actually blockchain technology. And that was 2008, 2009 when that was released. And a Bitcoin, basically, Bitcoin is just their tokens on the Bitcoin blockchain that represent, there's 21 million of them, right? That can just be a representation of value or ownership. There's a bunch of debate out there of, obviously, is it a currency? Is it does it store value? Those types of things. But at the end of the day, there's 21 million of them. They can be divisible, and people can move them from basically one account to another account. On Ethereum, what Ethereum done is they took that same basic concept and applied or created something called smart contracts. And basically what smart contracts do is allow you to automate transactions between accounts on a blockchain, where it's like, if this person sends $1,000, then I will send them the ownership to my car, or whatever, however you want to put that. So you can build complexity into transactions. It's no longer just I send 1 Bitcoin from this account to another account. It's I send Ethereum from this account into a smart contract that facilitates a more complex transaction and then settles it for me.
Yeah, and I've heard that term. I've even used that term, but I guess I've never thought about what is the indicator that makes this a smart contract. Is it just that it's technology enabled versus like you and I signing a paper?
So there's actually a lot of people think smart contract has actually been a bad terminology for it. It's been good in the sense that people have been able to like latch on to the term smart contract, but really it's just an if-then statement. If this happens, then something else happens. And why that's unique on a blockchain is that it can run by itself. So when you create a smart contract on a blockchain and deploy it onto that blockchain, nobody else needs to be in control of it. And this is kind of where decentralization can come into play. You no longer have to have a central person running a cloud application somewhere to ensure that something happens. These smart contracts can run on their own. That's a pretty powerful feature.
And so without getting ahead of ourselves, but I guess I will a little bit, would it be fair to say that anything that is a current contract, I buy a house, go to the sign on the closing date, we have the title company, I own, that's real estate example. It could be my car, like I hire a freelance graphic designer to help us out at Lemonly. That could all be done on potentially a smart contract or on the blockchain.
Yeah, for sure. And I think eventually all of those types of things will happen. And again, the reason why blockchains are so good at this, and this is kind of where NFTs start coming into play, is with a blockchain, you have an account and I have an account, and you can see what's in that account. And it also has timestamps. So when somebody owns something, and when they transferred it to somebody else. And those are like the two most important concepts in commerce in markets is when did you have it and when did you sell it or when did you buy it? When did it transfer between people? And smart contracts are really good at facilitating that and is going to be really good at facilitating all sorts of transactions in the future.
There's a lot of assumed trust that goes on when you buy a car off of Craigslist that we are just sort of putting good faith into each other as humans. So,
and
okay, cool.
To add on that real quick is, Visa or PayPal or kind of all of those our traditional finance systems are all built around how do we secure transactions better, or I guess with Visa, it's actually more like how do we ensure that this transaction was good and correct. And so with smart contracts, it kind of automates some of that, and it makes it easier for other people to have a more secure transaction without having to be this massive, huge company like Visa or PayPal.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of equalizes the playing field in terms of resources, which is interesting. Okay, so let's go there next to NFTs, because I think we're making our way there. And this is where it really gets interesting to me, because we're not just talking about financial systems now. We are talking about everyday life.
Yep.
And so a non-fungible token, people have probably, this has sort of been called NFT summer, especially the back half of it was just exploding. Yeah. And so people maybe have heard or seen on Twitter a thing called a CryptoPunk or a Bored Ape or, an Ether Rock, maybe, if you followed me on Twitter. Explain, let's even break down all three of those words. So non and fungible and token, what does this mean?
Yeah. So with cryptocurrencies like Ethereum, or technically it's Ether, or Bitcoin, those are divisible, right? So one Bitcoin can be divided into, I forget how far it goes, but a pretty small amount, right? You don't have to buy one Bitcoin. You can buy 0.001 Bitcoin.
So I think even that is a complicated part for the average person to get their head around, right? You can't cut up $1 into 1,000 pieces, right?
Well, you can cut it into 100, but any more than that, it's
true. So good point.
With it's difficult for a lot of people, because a lot of people think that you have to buy one Bitcoin to like have access to Bitcoin. And when it's, $45,000 or whatever the price is,
it's hard.
They're thinking of it like Berkshire Class A stock, and there's no way they can get access to it. But in reality, they could buy $5 worth of Bitcoin because it's divisible. Mm-hmm. With non-fungible tokens, the non-fungible part, so Bitcoin is fungible, Ethereum is fungible. Non-fungible tokens can't be divided. So that one token cannot be split up into smaller chunks. And that is why they're called a non-fungible token.
Okay, cool. And the token, I think, is interesting because in my mind, I almost replace that word with, it can be token, it can be key, it can be access, it can be rights, certificate. It seems to be like almost interchangeable when we start to think about real life use cases. So let's even go to Pinata. Like, what's an example of a customer using you guys, and more so less about you guys, I guess, but more about how they're using the token?
Yeah. So I guess before I do that, I always like to give my definition of what a non-fungible token is.
Oh, sure.
And to me, those are not NFTs are the representation of ownership or licensing rights or rights of some sort. It's really that simple. If you have a non-fungible token and it's sitting in your cryptocurrency wallet, you have rights or ownership to something. Whatever that NFT represents, you have the ownership or rights to it. And so where it started off and where the space began was with something called I guess the modern interpretation of NFTs, which would be 2017 versus 2016, is CryptoKitties was kind of the first example of NFTs. And it was just this game that was created with kitties, and they had attributes associated with them that might make them more valuable or not, similar to a game situation. CryptoPunks was also around at that time and is also credited with being a early version of an NFT. But today, they're getting a lot more complicated. They can, like I said earlier, they can represent anything from applications to videos to simple images. But what we have at Pinata is all of these NFT projects and applications or marketplaces use us to manage that data. And we have like a marketplace like Rarible uses us. There's a popular marketplace called Foundation out there that uses us, and plenty of other projects out there, including actually Bored Ape Yacht Club. So
cool. That's great. And so a few examples I've seen in this real life use case, like Gary Vee has used an NFT as essentially a ticket to a conference. We've seen it. I saw the My First Million podcast just did an NFT as like access to sponsorship. You could basically be a guest on their podcast, which gets millions of downloads each month. What other interesting ones have you seen, or maybe more interesting, do you envision coming in the future?
Yeah. So right now, what we're seeing a lot of is actual applications or gaming applications. So again, an NFT can represent anything. And so what these teams are doing is creating games that you can play based upon whether or not you own the NFT or not, right? And so if you don't own the NFT, you don't get access to it. If you do own the NFT, you can play the game and have access to it. So that's exciting. What I'm looking forward to is just transferring rights and ownership of data, any kind of data that you can think of between parties. So that could be, large enterprises, large Fortune 500s could have data sets or applications that they want to transfer from them to another enterprise. They can do that with NFTs. Physical assets can be represented with NFTs, though it's a little bit more difficult than digital assets, but you can certainly represent physical assets with it. So I think we're going to see a lot of applications there. And then experiences, people are using NFTs to create experiences, mostly digital, but you can have access.
Seems just like a matter of time though.
Yeah, you can have access to 3D experiences and it's exciting. The one thing that I think is going to happen in the future here is it's going to be a lot more consumer focused. That's where it's at right now, but you can apply it to music, you can apply it to art, you can apply it to games, you can apply it to movies. All those types of things can all be managed and accessed with NFTs.
Yeah, and I think, just like a lot of things in life, when they maybe look like a toy or feel new at first, and I've seen a lot of maybe dismissive faces where it's like, wait. Why would someone pay $1 million for a picture of a JPEG rock or, an ape that has his eyes falling out of it or whatever it might be, which is a fair question on the surface, but also like, why did we decide that the Mona Lisa is as rare as it is? Or why did we decide that this type of car is so much more sought after over this other car at the end of the day? They just are transportation devices, right? Like it's sort of the value is in the eye of the beholder and what someone's willing to pay for it. Yeah.
And actually have lots of thoughts on kind of how NFTs should be looked at. So this is going to be a simple statement, but not all NFTs are the same. Some NFTs, like actually Bored Ape Yacht Club does a really interesting job with this, where you buy a Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT, what you're actually getting is full derivative rights to use that ape however you want to. So you can actually build a business off of that Bored Ape. You can, turn it into a 3D object and then sell it as an asset in another game. You can print T-shirts with it. You could create a movie off of it.
Make a movie, yeah.
Yeah, you can make songs, whatever. So that to me is really interesting, because actually what they're doing is giving you intellectual property rights to this NFT, and that can have a business built off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Other ones don't give you the intellectual property rights, and so in that sense, it's more like a book, right? Where you buy a Harry Potter book, it doesn't give you the rights to do anything.
Yeah, you can't change Harry Potter. Yeah,
you can only read it. And so there's different classes of NFTs, and there's different rights that go with it. Some you have full ownership of whatever it represents. Some of it you have limited ownership or limited rights, and some of it you have full rights, but you don't own maybe Bored Ape Yacht Club specifically, but you own that one individual one and can do certain things with it. So I think there's just a lot of different applications for it, and so when a NFT sells for $1 million, that I think the hype gets people excited about it, but over time I think that'll sort itself out a little bit more. And it's more like you can buy the domain cars.com, and back in 1995 that would be a great domain name to have, and you could probably sell it for a lot of money. But until the cars.com company was actually a business, it didn't generate revenue just because you had cars.com. You have to build a business behind it. And I think that's what we're going to see as we move forward.
That's why I always like catching up with you on this stuff, because you have I think you still have a good, very practical Midwestern perspective.
Yeah, that's where my Midwestern, I'm like, all right, I totally believe in all of this, but also let's actually provide some value and create revenue off of these things.
Well, you touched on an interesting aspect too of NFTs that I got in a little bit of a Facebook debate with somebody, a local artist, who sort of was dismissive, saying all this stuff is coming out. I don't think it's very good art. I think it sort of diminishes the definition of art. And of course the environmental angle too, which maybe we can talk about. And I said, I kind of disagreed, because I felt like the NFTs have given a platform or a tool or device to open the door and to make money for so many artists, whether you are a musician, a fine artist, even a content creator, to now be able to share the IP, to license it, to sell it out. I think it's just fascinating time to be an artist in 2021.
Yeah, it's I think what NFTs are doing, especially on the digital side, is giving smaller individuals or projects the ability to create new intellectual property, new content, new art, whatever it may be, and actually be able to effectively control the permissioning around it. So if you wanted to upload, a video to YouTube today, the only way you're making money off of that is basically through their ad network, and you don't have a good way to, as a content creator, get that out anywhere else. NFTs are allowing content creators and artists the ability to get content out into the world and control the pricing around it. And so it's giving them the ability to create their own businesses without needing to rely on a YouTube or an Instagram or somebody like that, where you're just getting a small percentage cut from the ad network. You can actually go out and sell directly to your fans or consumers, however you want to look at them, your content, your art, and control what rights are actually associated with it.
Yeah. And that's where I'll let you correct me if you have a different take, but that's where we start to kind of venture into what I think people are calling, Web 3. So if Web 1 was like, hey, we're connected to the internet, we can dial up and I can go on, like you said, cars.com, and content will appear. It's very one way.
Yep.
I type it in, it comes to me. Web 2 was sort of this social mobile era, right? I have my phone, I can click a button and order a car, or I can tweet what I had for lunch and then someone else can comment on it. All of a sudden we have these platforms where we're talking to each other, creating connection and community. But the platforms were really capturing all that value. We were serving them the data and the information. They were monetizing that. And now Web 3 is things are becoming more decentralized. We get to own what we're also creating, but we can also sell it and set the price. And Is that oversimplified, or how would you kind of explain Web3?
Yeah, Web3 to me is just like, it's basically going to be a marketplace built on blockchain that underpins and powers anybody's data or application, however you want to look at it. So people are going to be able to buy, sell, and interact together in a lot more direct fashion. And you don't have to necessarily go through massive platforms to create that interaction. You don't have to, follow somebody on YouTube to get content. You can just find them, go back to going to their website, and then viewing their content there, or buying their content there, or getting NFTs to content, or tickets, or whatever. The individual businesses and creators are going to have a lot more freedom and flexibility to interact with their customers directly, and they won't have to have a massive tech team behind them that knows how to operate clouds and run payment systems and all that
venture capital. Yeah,
right.
Interesting. Yeah, and I think maybe a misconception is it doesn't mean that the internet we now know, Web 2, is going away, but I like how you said it's almost going to be like a layer of commerce almost on top of everything, the current internet.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things we did at Pinata is during the hype bubble, so there's been multiple hype bubbles in the NFT space. People might just be familiar with the last one, but the first run up was kind of in December, January of this year. And what we did is we went out and interviewed all the people that were using us, and we're like, hey, why are you using us? What are you doing? A lot of them were artists, musicians, photographers, all those types of people. And we just wanted to know like what they were looking to do and what they were trying to accomplish. Most of them were just trying to make money in a more efficient way because they feel that they've been locked out from doing that. But the other interesting thing that we learned is that a lot of them, run and manage their own, fan groups, right?
Sure.
Whether it's on their Instagram account or their Twitter account or their Facebook account, they use social media kind of as their marketing arm, and that's how they interact and connect. And then they drive their fan base that they've built over time to their NFTs, right? So I kind of look at it as the marketing front end is kind of what Web 2 is, and now Web 3 is going to be where the transactions take place.
Monetization.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, and you guys essentially, you can dismiss. I think of you as like the AWS sort of power in some of that, like hosting these images and the data in the background.
Yeah, we definitely have that element, and then on top of that, what we're doing is ensuring that the NFTs are high quality, secure, going through. And there's certainly, bad actors in the NFT space, just like there anywhere else, and making sure that some of that stuff is handled for the people that are creating these NFTs. So they can just, create an NFT, whether it's 1 or 1 million NFTs for their fans or whatever they're doing with them. And they don't have to worry about the underlying technology or anything like that. So,
cool, very cool. Well, I think the last term I want to get to, and I think we've stacked the blocks well, because this was the first one when I experienced this. To me, it's sort of the aha moment for like a newbie getting into crypto and NFTs is a wallet. And when you have a wallet, and these are through apps like MetaMask or Rainbow.me or two that I've used, and you log into a website, it's sort of this sort of magical experience that you don't have to have a username and password. You connect your wallet, it's safe and secure, and all of a sudden you're just kind of into this site. Tell us about what a wallet is, because obviously we know what that is in everyday life, but what does it mean in the crypto world?
So on a blockchain or a crypto network like Bitcoin or Ethereum, what you have is a public and private key. Public key is kind of like your bank account number. It's where people can send money. But what's unique about cryptocurrency in the public key is that you can't you can't send money from the public key. You do it with your private key. And this allows you to control your account on a blockchain or a crypto network. And so with your wallet, you can manage all your cryptocurrencies. You can manage all of your NFTs. You can manage anything with it. You can sign transactions. You can do a bunch of cool stuff. And it allows you to go from one application to another application to another application without them needing to ask you, what's your email, what's your Google login, your Facebook login, or having your own password account or whatever. And so where that actually ends up is your wallet becomes basically your personal identity. And then you're in control of your basically online self, right? So instead of having those identities across a bunch of different organizations like Facebook, Google, Apple, Stripe, whoever has your identity, it's more consolidated and it's more in control by you. And that allows you to move a lot freer, I guess, across applications and websites, because they just hook into your identity and say, hey, who are you? What do you, what do you have? What are you trying to do? And they can operate from there.
Yeah. And I think that's really cool. That's when we merge these, like you mentioned it, like your wallet sort of becomes your online identity. And so anything truly could be an NFT. Hey, you went to opening day, Minnesota Twins game, or the Huskers game down in Lincoln. Like, here's your NFT. Like, your ticket becomes your NFT. That's something that you support and went to. You verified that you were there. It could be you're a member of this community. I've even heard the analogy of, like, if you're a person who finds a band, an upcoming band, and then you tell people, right? And then 5 years later, they're super big and famous. And you're like, I was in on that band before anybody knew. It's like, well, it's just your word saying that. But if you had their NFT on the blockchain, I could see that you were into them in 2018 or whatever it might be.
Yeah. And what's cool and what we've been seeing that's interesting with having those NFTs is it gets you perks. So, maybe having that NFT because I went to the Husker game last weekend isn't that cool. But what if somebody out there then decided to create a highlight reel of that game, and they only allow people who were at the game and have the NFT to actually have access to it? So by having your NFTs in your account, you can actually have other people do and create content or value for you to view and experience just because you have that NFT. And they might be doing it outside of just doing it because they want to, or maybe the university does it, or whoever ends up doing it. But you can add content later because they have the proof and they know that you were there.
Yeah, I think that's super cool. Okay, so I know we've basically just used definitions to wind through this whole episode, but I think it's really helped. And so to bring it back around to someone listening, hopefully they're not too overwhelmed yet, but if you are a leader in an organization and wondering, like, do I need to be thinking about this? Or more so, like, where do I start? I know you can answer this question because I know you've been doing this for the last 3-4 years to leaders in Nebraska and companies, CEOs. What do you say to someone who's thinking, okay, how should I care about this?
Yeah, I truly do believe that all commerce, all marketplaces, all business is going to transact on blockchains. What blockchain and when is still, up in the air.
Sure.
Things can change, but I believe that it's a much more efficient way to transact, whether that's data or assets or whatever it ends up being. And so where to start is I always think people should, actually jump into the space and buy cryptocurrency and send it from one wallet to another wallet and just experience it, because you'll get to actually see, why are there so many people that are actually building in this space and doing interesting things. And then you'll start asking questions of, like, okay, what is a wallet? Why do I need a wallet? How do I go from Coinbase, which is considered a custodial wallet, to a non-custodial wallet, which is something like MetaMask? Why do I have to sign stuff? Why did I just accidentally send my cryptocurrency to the wrong address? And I can never get it back, right?
Start with small amounts, right?
Yeah. Which happens, and it's happened to me, and it's happened to many other people. And then you'll get to see, how powerful this technology can be. One of the interesting things. So I spent some time out at the University of California, Berkeley, going through a program there on blockchain and cryptocurrency. And what they talked about, or what one of my classmates talked about, was basically blockchain is a user interface for cryptography. People, normal, regular people, have never had access to cryptography or the power of cryptography. And blockchain and crypto is the first example of this. And so while it's a clunky interface and difficult to operate with, it's actually a very good interface for cryptography itself. And so, what I always tell people is just go into it, start playing around with it, use applications. Don't just buy cryptocurrency and use it as a speculative asset. That's not what I'm telling people to do. What I'm telling them to do is go and interact with it. And then I think it'll become very apparent why it's so exciting, and use things like DeFi applications and other applications that rely natively on cryptocurrency to run.
All right, so that was a great answer. It pumped me up. Now I want to go learn and read some more things. So if someone's like myself and is curious, has a question, maybe is looking for a link to a resource, how can we connect with you or Pinata or follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Kyle Tut, KyleTut, across all platforms. So Twitter or LinkedIn, whatever works best for you. And then on the Pinata side, pinata.cloud is our website, and you can check us out there.
Cool. Well, I'm excited to follow the company, and thanks for always being my crypto guide. Appreciate it, Kyle.
Absolutely. It's a lot of fun.
All right. Take care, man.
Later.
All right, that is all for this episode of the Leadmore podcast. I hope you enjoyed that. I know your wheels might be thinking, spinning, not quite sure everything that we learned, but a really good primer. And there is so much content out there on the internet. Go to Google. You can reach out to me, or of course, as Kyle shared, to him as well. Try to learn a little bit more about this fascinating stuff. I'm maybe knees deep in it, but I still got a long way to go. So I think it's very interesting. Thanks to Kyle for coming on. And thank you for listening, of course, to the Leadmore podcast. Reminder, we drop new episodes every single Thursday. So if you don't want to miss one, subscribe. Subscribe on Apple, follow us on Spotify. And why don't you find your favorite episode and send it to a friend? You can share the link, whether it was this one with Kyle, last week with Senator John Thune, or episode 1 with Dennis Dugard, whoever it was in between. So thank you for listening. Share ones with your friends. And as always, as I say, take care and be well.